welcome for our last session, our last vertical, dedicated to digital technologies, AI, cybersecurity, and else. So we have the pleasure to have in this first table about innovation, digital infrastructure, and the future of satellite industry, Lucie Liversain, Chief of Staff at Skynopy, Mr. Karantzalos, Secretary General for Digital at the Secretary for Digital Governance for Post and Telecommunication, and Vassilis Charmandaris, the President of the Board of Fourth. And this panel will be moderated by Alexia Kalaitzi from Kathemerini. Have a good discussion.
Thank you so much. All right, first step. Thank you so much for being here. And we are witnessing actually an unprecedented boom in the satellite innovation and space industry. And I'm really honored to have three guests with me who can give us a rare insight in three sectors: private sector, governmental sector, and academia. And Lucie, I'm gonna start with you. Let's first of all set the frame and understand Skynopy. What was the revolution that actually the company brought and managed to bring forward the satellite innovation?
Hello everyone, so I'm Lucie from Skynopy. Thanks of course for receiving me, it's really a pleasure. So Skynopy, we are focused on something that is very specific in the space industry, but still important. We are what we call a ground segment as a service company. In a nutshell, when we talk about space, often we look at the launchers, the satellite, of course, that are the main part of the space industry, but we often overlook what is on the ground, basically. So the ground stations that are connecting with satellites. And with the growth of low Earth orbit, actually you need more and more ground stations to make sure that you can, communicate every time with your satellites. And thus, it's very CapEx, I would say, intensive, very expensive, actually, if you are relying into a lot of ground stations. And at the same time, these ground stations are not, I would say, always used. So what Skynopy does is basically a bit the Airbnb model, meaning that we actually connect with existing ground stations that have, I would say, undue use antenna time. We use this time, we sell it to our satellite operators, to our customers. Therefore, we make, I would say, money and we share it to the ground station owners, and we make sure that our customers, so satellite operators, can connect seamlessly with the satellites.
Make it more accessible and cheaper, actually.
Yes, indeed. That's what is interesting. Of course, the launch, I would say, segment has been disrupted mainly by SpaceX. You can now industrialize the production of satellites, but the ground hasn't been disrupted actually in the previous years. So, but basically, I would say, staying on board, what we'd like to actually achieve in terms of disruption and to make sure that actually the ground connective can be really cheaper. This is basically what we have been seeing in the telecom industry before, in the telco operators 20 or even 30 years ago. Now we are focused to make sure that we can connect, I would say, at a really low cost, all the satellites, whether they are really big satellites, I would say, that are, for example, doing optical, very high resolution optical imagery, or also new space players, universities, small sats, etc.
Perfect. So this was a very amazing, impressive step forward. And back to you, Mr. Charmandaris. In Crete, I understand that you envision to grow new teams and startups that will follow this example. Could you tell us more about this new project, Space Crete?
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, Fourth is probably the largest research organization in Greece, and one of our great advantages is the fact that there are different institutes, so there is interdisciplinarity. We have from lasers to computer science to materials, and since innovation often happens at the interfaces, we have motivated people who would like to work together and contribute to the advancement of technology, but also to the economy of our country and Europe, because we are a public research organization, so we need to always think about that. So Space Crete is funded by the European Commission and the Greek state. It's a big project, 6-year project, 15 million from the European Commission and a commitment of over 20 million from the Ministry of Digital Governments, the Ministry of Development, the region of Crete, and also private investors. And the idea is, as we said in one word, is to turn Crete from a beautiful tourist destination, well known also for its tomatoes, but as a space island that is a place where we can develop technologies and be relevant to what the strategy of the country and the European Commission is towards the future. So we want to develop technologies which are related to telecom, technologies which are related to signal processing and image processing from satellites, which is a very big market for various reasons, for surveillance, Earth observation, natural disasters, and Professor Karantzalos knows that much better than I do. To also assembly of small satellite parts that could also be relevant, because we have experience locally. We had clean rooms and microelectronics and nanoelectronics group, which are very experienced on that. So our hope is to bring this together in an organization that has experience in innovation, experience into turning ideas into companies. FourthNet was created by Fourth some 30 years ago. And we understand the complementarity between a public research organization and the private sector and the strategy that is being dictated by the European Commission and the state. So we want to be a player on that role, and I think we can do it very well.
Mr. Karantzalos, you have inaugurated this National Small Satellites program. How the government decided actually to invest in this program, and which are the benefits you're expecting?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. So it was something like 3-4 years ago that we decided that part of the RRF funds will go to space and aerospace. And then the Greek Space Agency, the Hellenic Space Center, we started designing the program. It had some ups and downs, but then we locked, our priorities, and these priorities were mainly derived from the governmental users. So we collected systematically all the user needs. We systematically record what amount of national funds are going to which, let's say, services, products, and to shape the program mainly to cover these national needs, but at the same time to help the Greek ecosystem to develop technology, new technology, space, aerospace, and also to collaborate with the European industry. Now the program is, is really going well. We have already 17 satellites in orbit. Actually, we have an event this Friday morning. The Prime Minister will come, so you are welcome to it's Greece in orbit, and we will announce actually the continuation of this program. So you are welcome to listen what our next plans are. Now, because you started mentioning, where space and all the other technologies and where we are in Europe, especially regarding space, we have to think that Europe has struggling between 12 and 30% of the global space market. And the US has something like 40%, China, etc. So as Europeans, we have to understand that they have to invest more, because space now handles, from our daily lives. Our location is coming from space, all the telecommunications are coming from space. When you go to the ATM and have bank transactions, all this time synchronization comes from space. So without space, we are not, the global economy won't work. So it's something that it's up there. We don't pay much attention, but the technology there actually defines how our daily life is and global economy are in a daily mode, operating. So coming again to Europe, there are great European projects and we have successfully implement really flagship top-level projects like Copernicus, Galileo, etc. So we can deliver. We have to somehow coordinate our investments. We have primes, Thales, I saw we were discussing, and other primes in Europe. They have delivered incredible technology. We should somehow coordinate, of course, leave space for, smaller SMEs, talent. We have talent here, so we have to somehow coordinate our efforts. Also, since we have national programs, we can federate between the nations, the European member states, and since Greece, let's say, have 17 satellites, if we have the Spanish national program, the Portugal program, we can augment this revisit time, and companies like Skynopy have a ground segment to have all this data coming down and facilitating all these services.
Now you brought me to my next point. We have the dynamics, but still not everything is perfect in the EU. And I would like to ask you, Mr. Liversain, what's the challenges of a European startup actually acting inside EU?
Yeah, that's an important question. So yeah, indeed, I would take, of course, the example from a startup point of view. Basically, when you're a startup, you're facing a lot of different risks. When you have an innovation, of course, you like to make sure that it can be tested. It can be sometimes tested through different customers. It can sometimes land into a contract. That's the most difficult side of things, is to make sure that from the innovation, the invention, even you can at the end turn that into revenue. So that's why technology is not enough. You need not only technology, of course, which is tremendously important, and that's why I would say research, innovation centers, university are so important to make sure that you can, make thrive this technology. But technology per se only is not enough. It's also the business model, I would say, associated to that, that can make, I would say, a venture work. So we're still in the middle of that with Skynopy. We have less than 3 years of existence. Of course, we haven't proved, I would say, all of it, of course. What we can maybe say on our side, I would say 3 years after the ignition of Skynopy, is that, yes, indeed, when you have a good technology and the right business model to deliver it, especially on the ground segment, that is really a key topic right now in terms of getting down the data without any, I would say, too much of a time to download the data, and also high throughput, because all the different payloads that are sent in orbit right now are producing a lot of data, whether it's optical, SAR, hyperspectral, etc. It's really heavy data, so you need to have like this big transport layer. Anyway, what we have been able to achieve right now is, of course, to have a commercial pipeline of customers that trust basically what we are doing in terms either of technology, but also of business model, because it's cost effective, as I've been mentioning. But yeah, next step is, of course, scaling in terms of all the new markets that you can open. That's the beauty of a space industry, is that it's a really international industry. So all the customers are, of course, placed everywhere in the world. That's why I think that also the European ecosystem is such an interesting one. But yeah, the most, I would say, important, challenge the ventures need to get is not only the technology, but the right business model.
To you, Mr. Charmandaris, we know that there is a skills gap, and we know that in many sectors we still lack talent. Was it easy to attract so many young scientists in Crete? Is it easy to bring them, to train them, and to inspire them to create their own startups and their own innovation?
Well, it's always challenging to recruit high-quality people who have many options, right? So one of the challenges that we have nowadays in academia in general is because we are competing, as everyone, for funding from the European Space Agency, from the European Commission. And in parallel, private companies over the past 7-8 years can actually compete in parallel. VAT is an eligible expense, and they provide also a very challenging environment. So it's always difficult to convince good people to come and work. At Forth, we have an advantage thanks to the hard work of the first people that founded the organization 40 years ago. And the good work that they did and the selecting the people that they did in the past, we have a very good name in the European Commission. We have strong collaborations with leading European research organizations, both public as well as private. We've seen some of them here in Naval Group and Thales, etc. So we do have an advantage in Crete, which the weather also helps. If you are young and dynamic, there are worse places that you can be than spending a part of your life in the island of Crete. However, the challenges still remain. I think one of the difficulties that we have, and it's more bureaucratic, and I'm sure the director of Athena, the chairman of the board, knows it also very well, has to do with the fact that you get funding from the European Commission, let's say, you get support from the state, but often the rules are not the same, they are not exactly compatible. So it's very difficult to juggle and realize a project having two different sources of funding with different rules. So that part makes the job of in realizing the project more difficult. But we are always optimistic. I think we should keep in mind that despite all the challenges, the research centers and the universities, the academic community in Greece is doing very well. We are doing better now than we did 20, 30 years ago when we were students. And I remain optimistic that with the existing policy, things will get better. Competition always helps. It's difficult, but it always helps.
I know that Space Crete is a relatively very new project, but I was wondering, have you tried to bring talent from abroad, Greek people, Greek experts, and if it was easy for them, for you to convince them?
Space Crete, the project itself is a collaboration between Forth, COA, which is a major research organization, public research center in France, DLR, which is the equivalent of German Space Agency, and OHB-LS, which is a small startup company, which is the affiliate of the big OHB, which is a €1 billion company in Europe. After Airbus and Thales is probably the third largest. So the project will start in January. But our real goal is actually to create a center of excellence which is self-sustained down the road. That's why we are getting the money from the European Commission and the state. So our goal is to actually, and we will do that, we will engage in a collaborative fashion with the private companies who have already more experience than we have in this field, both companies in Greece and in Europe. And we will invite them, we will have a pre-kickoff info day in the 2nd of October. We will invite the people here, explain what our general goals are, and also explore common projects within those goals that could be supported partly by the funding that we have already secured, but also through establishing those collaborations to request further competitive funding, either from the European Commission via projects or from the private industry or from donors who have a common vision with us. So we actually see our goal as complementary. Our idea is to create the equivalent of Société Anonyme down the road, who will not be restricted by the limitations of a research center, of a public research center, and that could be in a collaborative fashion work with the private sector and the economy and offer to the development of technologies and the economy in the island of Crete and in Greece.
Thank you so much. Mr. Karantzalos, you mentioned the Greek ecosystem, and part of your effort is to strengthen this ecosystem. Could you tell us a few words about actually this ecosystem and which are the challenges that actually deals with?
Yes, I mean, trying also to comment on the previous discussion, I mean, both on that you need also a valid business plan, but also how you attract talent. I mean, the industry, I mean, it is required to have private investments along with governmental investments is to have a continuation. So to have a clear roadmap where the government, which is the anchor customer, let's say, wants to go. So the industry will prepare and do the investments required to reach the technology maturation, to have product services. I mean, so far in Greece, in Europe, more or less, we are doing more ad hoc, let's say, programs, investments. That's why in the ministry we tried to compose national strategies, so to know up to 2030, 2035, 2040, where our goals and want to head and where we want to somehow drive all the investments towards a very clear pathway so the industry will know and will be prepared for this. That's why we have the national space strategy, the national strategy on connectivity, the national strategy on automated robotic systems. We have a national strategy for IoT, for quantum. So we have composed all these national strategies, so it's clear now where we want to head. And actually, we are coordinating among the government side also, which is not always straightforward, how we will somehow coordinate fundings, activities in all those sectors. And for a governmental side, it's also quite challenging because, I mean, the technology itself is under transformation from space and big, satellites like this room here. We are in new space, smaller systems that we deploy, more often. The technology also in telecoms is under transformation. We have cloudification of the telecommunication networks. So AI and all this. Imagine for a government that is designing now, make tenders next year, have after 3 years, let's say, the technology arrived in the Ministry of the governmental agencies, this may be already obsolete. So we need to be more fast, we need to know where to go and be also have the flexibility to follow this. It's hard for the industry to follow and compete globally. Imagine for the governmental side how this is. So, to summarize, we need talent. Actually, with the programs that we have implemented, we have attract talent. We have engineers coming from Airbus, from high-end, from ESA, from NASA. They are working from JP Morgan. So there are, in aerospace, of course, you need the engineers, you need the software geeks, but you need also managers. We have attracted a lot of talent, and this is quite
for the national program, right?
Yes.
Correct.
They are working in the industry, working, from the government. So this is, something that we really much appreciate of seeing happening. And of course, then you need the business case and the business plan. So for those business plans, if we want Greece, Europe to be competitive, we have to see the global market, which we are not doing actually. So we are used, all the industry, in Greece, but in Europe also, to wait from the government, from the commission to issue projects and try to bid for this. But we have to move to a more, let's say, competitive globally manner of seeing our next moves from the industry, from the government, what we are asking, because this is something that we are lacking. If we accomplish this, and along with this, I will add also investments. Actually, we are not lacking investments. In Greece now, we have the talent, we have the ecosystem, we have the collaboration with the European industry, the global industry, we have suppliers all over the world, and we have actually funds that fund space. We didn't have. So we have the entire, let's say, framework that you need. However, if you see, numbers, in Europe, we are not investing much. And when I'm saying much, I'm thinking about the pension funds, which are actually coming from US and investing in our industry, and as a EU, we are not doing it. So we have somehow to coordinate all these activities, and I think we can deliver state-of-the-art technology that we are already delivering, and the industry, the European industry, can deliver.
Could you, and I will address to both of you this question, how partnerships actually can help this and actually can remedy what you've just said?
Yeah, I mean, with Skynopy, this is an example. I mean, through the national project, I said about deploying 70 satellites, and we will deploy more. I mean, we also construct the ground segments because we want to have the minimum latency when we are tasking a satellite to take, for example, an image, from the time I'm tasking the satellite, when I will have it in my mobile phone, when I will have it to make, an analysis and see what is happening. So trying to minimize this, we built in the south of Greece ground segment, in Crete, actually, in Sirte. And we're also investing in optical ground segments. And we also will build in north side of Greece. We have other ground segments. So now we can partner with Skynopy. They have a global footprint. They can exploit part of the time that this ground segment can be operated. Of course, we will task our own satellites, but we can have, there is room, for such collaboration, and this is an example.
Thank you. How about your experience? Is it easy for a private company to collaborate with European countries? Are open to collaborate with a European startup?
Yes, thank you. Indeed, actually, it's a question of the vision of the different partners and whether they are public or private. If you have a vision, if you want to actually, make sure that you can, foster ecosystem, accelerate partnerships. It doesn't matter if it's a public entity or a private entity, and so that's really what I see right now. For example, in this ecosystem. But to be honest, we've been discovering as we are a young company, but. As long as you have indeed this vision to make sure that all the investments can actually have like a positive effect, that's what counts. What we see indeed is to make sure that in the space economy we don't just think about big investments that doesn't turn into an ROI. It has been the case, I would say, previously. Usually, space economy is a lot of challenges, exploration, of course, science around that, which is basically at the core of space. But actually, what is interesting is to understand exactly how can we basically use this into our daily lives. That's what, of course, a lot of major programs of ESA have been capable of. And now all the different, I would say, sub-ecosystem in Europe, in countries, are actually taking that and making sure that all the investments can actually, flow down into use cases, whether they are in Earth observation, where they are in telecom, etc., and all the different, I would say, companies that can go around it, make sure that all this investment can, I would say, be best used. So our experience, as we are really like a partner-focused company, because we make sure that the, I would say, dormant offer can meet the highly scaling demands. Yes, indeed, we see that all the partners that have this vision actually to make the best use of the investment, whether come from the public entities or private entities, yes, we can accelerate really in a really short period of time.
Thank you. Maybe one last comment about what you would say that needs to change in order to see bigger progress in the satellite innovation in the European Union framework. I'm going to start this and coming back here.
Based on my experience, I think stability is more important than change. I think if the rules are set and the European Commission, the Greek government sticks to that, then the academic community, the researchers, can actually adapt and be productive within that framework. What is challenging for us in research centers that I represent is often the changing of the rules, frequently the priorities, how you can address them. I think that is this type of unpredicted change when a government changes or a minister changes. This is something that it's more disruptive than wishing for sort of like more money, more people. Even though I would like to have more money going to research, I greatly appreciate the fact that, as we heard from yesterday, that the Greek government increased the investment towards basic research to nearly 1.5%. But I understand that there are other priorities and other needs, and taxpayers' money needs to be spent wisely in other sectors as well. But stability and sticking to a well-thought plan is the more important thing for us, I think.
Thank you so much, Mr. Karantzalos.
So I don't have a very, straightforward answer. It's more complicated, but I will try to somehow sum it up. So in aerospace, we start from materials and microchips. So in Europe, we have a challenge on, first of all, mapping our supply chains. So we are discussing about production lines from autonomous robotics, aerial vehicles or whatever, spacecrafts, production lines. But if there is a need to, let's say, produce 3 million drones or, 1,000 satellites, I'm not sure under any global circumstances we can have the supply chains from materials, microchips, boards, subsystems, sensors, be arrived in Europe in the production lines and have them assembly, testing, integration, deployment. So first of all, and I think there is an initiative in the European Union, but also nationally we have started looking at this, and actually we are the ones that we will have all this survey done for all the deep sectors. So this is very crucial, first of all, to go to the next level, because we need production lines, because we are having operational service products. So we have to be sure first that we have all the materials that we can do business. Then if we want this business to go ahead and hit the global markets, which we are struggling as Europe, we don't have, so many global champions. Then, as I said, we have to stimulate investments in a manner that will allow these champions to look at the global market and not stimulate what we want from them in terms of customized products that will do, of course, the Greek government serve and cover needs, or the European, let's say, Commission and the program. So we have to let the industry find a way to compete globally and not, only find the investments that will support those companies to just be alive. So we need to change a little bit the manner that we are investing and what we are requiring from the public sector. Also, we should more be able from the governmental side, at least in Greece, to be able to invest in also the industry. We are not doing, we know that we will come up with projects and, the government will be always investing. So we should have the capability of also investing on the IP, investing directly to the companies or form joint ventures. So we have to be more flexible from the governmental side to, first of all, as I said previously, to follow the technology and asking state-of-the-art product to be delivered. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. How about you? Last comment.
So I very, very much agree with what you said. Indeed, that's exactly that. I feel that indeed it's really this question of value chain that is at the center of our, I would say, what we did to be our objective. If I take the focus on the small example of, I would say, the ground segment, indeed, that's really what we are trying to do. For example, in France, I haven't mentioned that, but we are working really closely with a ground segment ecosystem. So from the equipment manufacturing with Safran, for example, and with I would say players that are actually having a lot of ground infrastructure, namely Eutelsat, which with whom we have a really important strategic partnership to customers. So, for example, we are also already working with Airbus. We are providing our ground segment as a service for the Constellation, Plia Neo, and so on, of course, because there are many customers also in France around that ecosystem. But yes, we are trying, I would say, and at our pace to, foster this ground segment ecosystem, which is not easy, but it needs, of course, money to, I would say, support projects. And I wish really that at the European scale, or at least bilateral, I would say, for example, France, Greece, or other countries can actually, foster this ecosystem in specific value chains. That's also why we are so much dedicated to this partnership that we are just starting with the Ministry of Digital Governance, and also indeed to make sure that it's not only just a service, but apart from that, all the potential future capabilities on the ground that can be, fostered into that, making sure that we can, integrate existing capabilities and sell that to international customers. That's basically this revenue that can, foster investments. Maybe a positive note, we see that right now on the space economy, the European space economy, there is really strong investments that are coming up. For example, fundraising, M&As that are actually happening in Europe right now are super impressive. It used to be only the US or other countries. Now we see really big operations that are done right now in Europe. So that's also, I would say, potentially our turn on this.
I'm going to keep this positive note that this is the time for Europe to actually invest in space and make miracles. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all. And we will progress to the next panel. I hope that our guest speakers are here.